Oh, wait, so get ready for this one, because we are diving deep into a movie called A Trip to Jamaica.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's this Nigerian comedy drama that, like, totally crushed it at the box office.
Oh, wow.
But the critics were not impressed.
Hmm.
So to figure this all out, why everyone's kind of scratching their heads over this one, we've got a review from MovieKaTicket.com.
Okay, cool.
And by the way, just a reminder, Nollywood is what they call the Nigerian film industry. It's like huge.
Yeah, it's super interesting how this movie was like a mega hit with audiences, but at the same time, critics were like, nope.
Right.
It really makes you think about what makes a movie good,
Totally. So let's set the scene, okay? We've got Akpos and Bola, this newly engaged Nigerian couple, and they're heading off on their pre-wedding honeymoon.
Nice.
First to the U.S., then Jamaica, so pretty dreamy. Right?
Yeah, it sounds like a blast.
Yeah, except then they throw in this, like, drug cartel plotline.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not exactly what you think of when you hear lighthearted comedy.
Definitely a curveball.
Yeah. And I think that might be why some critics were saying the story felt all over the place, like they were trying to do too much.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, so let's talk about those critics. This movie was like a phenomenon in Nigeria.
Right.
I mean, it even outsold some of those big Hollywood blockbusters.
Wow.
But the reviews were not good.
Yeah. MovieKaTicket.com pointed out some problems with the script, the humor being kind of inconsistent, and just like you said, the storyline is kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
They did say it can be entertaining, though, if you're just in the mood for some classic Nollywood comedy,
Yeah, sometimes you just want something fun and lighthearted, even if it's not going to win any awards, right?
Exactly.
Okay, but what about Akpos, the main character played by Ayo Makun?
Right.
He's like a big deal in Nigeria for this character.
Yeah.
But do you think he maybe went a little overboard in this movie?
It's possible Akpos is kind of that, like, lovable fool character, which can be really funny, but the review did say that sometimes his antics kind of went too far into slapstick, and it didn't quite work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe that's why the humor felt uneven, like they were trying to cram in jokes to fit Ayo Makun's style, even if it didn't always land.
Yeah, it can be tricky to balance a character's shtick with the overall humor of the movie. Sometimes it ends up feeling repetitive.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not all just silly antics, though, right? There's also this attempt at cultural commentary.
Oh, yeah.
With Akpos reacting to American and Jamaican life in like a satirical way.
Exactly. They use his exaggerated responses to kind of poke fun at different cultures, although it's debatable how well that actually works.
Right. Like there's this one scene where Akpos says he taught Jay Okocha how to play.
Who's that?
Oh, he's this super famous Nigerian footballer.
Okay.
So do you think that's hilarious or just cringy?
I think it depends on your sense of humor. Some people might find it silly and endearing. Others might think it's over the top and not very subtle.
Yeah, that's true. For me, it highlights how the humor can be hit or miss. And it brings us back to that question of why this movie was such a massive hit with audiences, even though the critics weren't feeling it.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about A Trip to Jamaica that really clicked with people?
Well, Ayo Makun is super popular as Akpos, so people probably went in expecting his kind of humor and just wanted to see him on screen.
Right.
But there's also something to be said for seeing yourself represented in the characters and stories you watch, And this film shows this pretty lavish lifestyle trips to the U.S. Fancy houses, big parties.
Yeah, the aspirational element.
Exactly. And for a lot of viewers in Nigeria, where there's a lot of economic inequality, that kind of escapism can be really appealing.
Yeah, for sure.
It gives you a break from reality and lets you imagine yourself in their shoes.
So maybe it's not just about the laughs, but also about connecting with the characters and their journeys, even if those journeys are a little chaotic.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
And that's where the critics come in, right? They look at things like narrative structure, character development, thematic depth, all that stuff.
Exactly.
And A Trip to Jamaica might not have been strong in those areas.
Yeah.
But it definitely connected with its audience on an emotional level.
Yeah, for sure.
So if we're looking at it from the audience's perspective, it was a success.
Absolutely. It entertained people, got everyone talking, and yeah, it was a hit.
Okay, so let's move on to the visuals. The cinematography is supposed to be one of the movie's strengths, showcasing all those fancy settings in the U.S. and then contrasting them with the vibrant landscapes of Jamaica.
Oh, cool.
And it seems like the production quality is a step up from 30 Days in Atlanta, which was its predecessor.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that's a sign that Nollywood is like upping its game when it comes to filmmaking.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
But there's always a but.
Right.
Right. Apparently the editing could have been better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some scenes drag on a bit, which kind of messes with the pacing.
It's funny how even movies with amazing visuals can be brought down by editing choices.
It's true.
Like there's a scene where Akpos gets lost in New York City and it goes on forever. It feels really repetitive.
Yeah.
If they had tightened that scene up, it would have kept the comedy going and the audience engaged.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got beautiful visuals, some funny moments, but also a messy storyline, uneven humor, and some questionable editing choices.
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah. Based on all that, do you think a trip to Jamaica is something you'd personally enjoy? What parts appeal to you the most, and are the flaws something you can overlook?
I think I would enjoy it, honestly. I like movies that don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'd be into it, even with the flaws.
Yeah. Those visuals alone sound pretty amazing, and who doesn't love a good fish out of water story, you know?
Totally. And for anyone who's like maybe thinking about watching it, MovieKaTicket.com actually recommended it for people who want to get into Nollywood comedy.
Oh, that's a good point. A trip to Jamaica could be like a fun way to start exploring Nigerian cinema, which actually has way more than just comedies.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to ask about that. You mentioned other genres.
Oh, yeah, tons. Dramas, romances, thrillers.
Yeah.
Even historical epics.
Right. There are stories about love and betrayal and politics and social issues, you name it. They're making movies about it.
It's like Hollywood, but with that Nigerian twist.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so cool. You get to experience different perspectives and storytelling styles. It's like a window into a culture you might not know much about.
So even if the story in A Trip to Jamaica is a little all over the place, it does give you a glimpse into Nigerian culture.
Oh, for sure. You can see it in how the characters talk to each other, the family dynamics, the humor, even how that they handle different situations. It's subtle, but you're definitely getting a taste of the culture.
Right. And speaking of culture, that scene where Akpos says he taught J.O. Okocha how to play football.
Yeah.
That's got to be like an inside joke for Nigerians.
Totally. It shows how these Nollywood films tap into that local knowledge. So for Nigerians, it's this funny reference to their football culture, but for everyone else, it might just seem like a random weird joke.
Yeah, which brings us back to A Trip to Jamaica being like a gateway into Nollywood. It's like a sample platter. If you like what you taste, you might want to order the whole menu.
I love that. And I think even though it has its flaws, A Trip to Jamaica really captures what makes Nollywood so popular. That mix of humor and drama and relatability.
And it shows you how powerful it is when a movie connects with its audience.
For sure.
This movie really resonated with people, even though the critics weren't impressed.
Yeah, it reminds us that filmmaking isn't just about being technically perfect. It's about making the audience feel something.
Right.
Sometimes a movie that makes you feel something, even if it's not perfect, can be more impactful than a perfectly made film that leaves you cold.
Yeah, totally. And it goes back to what we were talking about before. What makes a movie good? Is it critical acclaim, box office success, or just whether you personally enjoyed it?
I think it's all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's about what speaks to you personally, you know. What moves you, what makes you laugh, what stays with you after the movie's over.
And sometimes a movie can totally surprise you. You might think you're just going to watch a silly comedy, and then you end up learning something new or seeing things from a different perspective.
That's the magic of movies.
It's true.
They can take you to other worlds, introduce you to new ideas, and challenge your way of thinking.
Okay, so A Trip to Jamaica, maybe not a cinematic masterpiece.
Right.
But it's definitely got people talking about Nollywood and cultural differences and what makes a movie good.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation.
Just for that, I think it deserves some props.
For sure.
Okay, so now I'm curious about you. Have you ever loved a movie that everyone else seemed to hate? What was it about that film that you connected with?
Let me think.
Take your time.
Okay, I've got one.
Okay, what is it?
Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, the Wachowskis one.
Yeah, the space opera critics absolutely hated it.
Oh, I love that movie.
You do?
I was so captivated by the visuals and just like how wild the story was.
Oh, that's interesting. It definitely had some problems, but I can see why you'd be drawn to the visuals and that crazy plot. It's like you said, sometimes those so-called bad movies are the most fun.
Exactly. And then sometimes those movies that critics love just leave you feeling like, eh?
Yeah, true.
But that's the cool thing about movies. There's something out there for everyone. And what one person loves, someone else might be totally bored by. And you just never know what hidden gem you might find if you're willing to try something new.
And speaking of trying new things, if you're interested in checking out more Nollywood after this deep dive on a trip to Jamaica, you should check out MovieKaTicket.com.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
They have reviews and recommendations for all kinds of genres, not just comedies.
Like a whole new world of movies waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And like you said, there are dramas, romances, thrillers, historical epics. There's something for everyone.
Right. And the cool thing about Nollywood is that it gives you a glimpse into Nigerian culture and values and perspectives you might not see anywhere else.
Yeah, it's really eye-opening.
It reminds us that there are amazing movies being made all over the world, not just in Hollywood.
For sure.
And a lot of times these films give us a unique way to learn about different parts of the world.
That's the power of cinema, right? It can take you to other places, introduce you to new ideas, help you understand the world better.
So yeah, A Trip to Jamaica, maybe not a perfect movie, but it was fun. It looked amazing, and it was a huge hit at the box office.
Yeah.
It definitely got people talking about Nollywood and cultural differences and what makes a good movie in the first place.
Yeah, and whether you agree with the critics or not, it's been a really interesting conversation.
And it reminds us that there are so many great films out there just waiting to be discovered. You might find your new favorite movie from a country you've never even been to.
Exactly. There's a whole world of cinema out there just waiting to be explored.
So that wraps up our deep dive on A Trip to Jamaica. Flawed but fun, a visual treat, and a box office smash.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Now, we want to hear from you. What's a movie that you loved but everyone else seemed to hate? Tell us about it on social media. Until next time, happy watching.